one. This is one neighborhood.
Right.
All right. Okay, welcome to the February Citizen Involvement Committee meeting. I'm feeling a little lopsided here as Karen and I and everyone else is hiding on the side.
And we also would be on that side of the room.
Okay.
Sorry, the earth is too.
Come on, Roy, come on, Roy, come on up.
What a guy.
He's
All right.
he's just gonna cause trouble. You notice he still won't sit down.
That was really a
So we're gonna really quickly and quietly,
Yeah, that's it.
we're going to introduce ourselves because we have new members here tonight. Just give us your name and what neighborhood you are here representing. And we'll start with Roy.
Roy Harris, Chairman, Hillendale Neighborhood Association.
Vern Johnson, Chair of Tower Vista.
Linda Basinger, Kanema.
Dennis Anderson, Kanema.
Greg Stone, Chair Park Place.
Denise McGriff, alternate for James King, who is out of town today, and I'm the, thank goodness, the vice chair of the neighborhood association.
Which one?
McLaughlin.
For those who don't know.
Mike Mitchell, Caulfield.
Karen Maury, River Crest.
And I'm Amy Will Height,
I've been on a
Chair of the
Riverside
Gaffney Lane
project
neighborhood.
today.
One thing to remember, make sure your microphones are on and that when you're speaking in them that they can pick it up because people who are watching this now or later can't hear anything if you're not speaking into the microphone. However, if you're talking to your neighbor, that's a good time to turn off your microphone because they will hear the side chatter. And sometimes it's really distracting because all you hear is the side chatter. So let's go ahead and, we have some city folk here too. Let's go ahead and introduce yourselves too.
Laura Turway, Community Development Director. Christina Robertson Gardner, Oregon City Planning.
She is our liaison.
Oh, CIC Liaison.
She's official.
Tony Conkle, City Manager.
Brian Shaw, City Commission.
Thank you. All right off the bat, we have elections of officers. All three positions are open. We currently don't have a secretary. I was the chair and Karen is the vice chair and that ended the 31st. So technically, I guess we're not here. Anything. So with that being said, the process, as I understand it, is we open up the elections to nominations at this time.
For chair.
Just a question, do we have or need a quorum?
We have a quorum here. There are 8 of the 12 neighborhoods represented here tonight.
Okay.
We were
I
just
asked
doing
that
the noise
question.
count. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, we made sure, because I had the same concern. Wow.
I'm going to nominate Mike Mitchell.
For,
Chair.
and I'm going to have to decline.
Oh, I don't think you can.
Yes, I can.
Yes, you can.
Watch me. I have to. And I will say that I think that
About
Amy has
last
done a terrific job of interfacing with city staff, going to things like the developer roundtable, things that are during the day, during the week. And at this point in time, I just can't do because I work in Northwest Portland. So I have to
I'll go to the
respectfully decline.
developers
I don't think I
group
can
with
do the job the group needs.
Well, you can share the
there you go.
meetings.
I'll go to
And
the meetings.
she'll go to the daytime meetings. See, it's a compromise.
I like the trade.
She's probably tired.
So if we don't have a chair and a vice chair, what do we do?
How about, would you be vice chair?
Vice Chair here, I think. I nominate Amy.
Okay, I'm going to nominate him
chair?
for vice chair.
I second that.
Wait a minute, whoa.
I didn't get it.
Amy,
They just nominated myself.
All right, you need to be on one office. Nominations for chair are now open.
Oh, we weren't getting anything. I was trying for anything, Karen.
I got
All
one
right,
for vice chair.
so if there are no further nominations for chair, you can
Vern nominated me and Linda seconded, and I was
Okay.
trying, and I haven't had an answer if I can decline or not.
Sure you can.
I mean, I hadn't had the chance yet,
Oh,
because you interrupted.
all right. So since you've just been nominated, I'm the vice chair. Amy, do you accept the nomination? So you don't have to talk to yourself.
I'm going to think about that while we address Denise's nomination.
Mike, decline?
Yes.
No, for he just,
You can't do.
yes, I can.
No, you can't. You have to do one office at a time. I'm your parliamentarian.
She's holding.
Then I will
Hold it.
decline.
Okay.
Can we table the chair just for a few moments? And then hearing no further nominations, you can open nominations for vice chair.
I'm not the chair.
Yes, you are.
Well,
There's no new
until the end of
chair.
this, until the end of this meeting. you
You're
are.
chair until there's a new chair.
I didn't close nominations, Karen.
Okay.
I didn't open or close. You're trying to take over.
No. You can't do all 3 offices at once. You've got to do them one at a time.
Vice Chair?
I'd like to nominate Mike Mitchell. Somebody second
I will
it?
second
There
that for
go.
you.
Mike?
That's
Would you
fine.
accept that nomination?
If there's a chair.
We're getting there. We're getting there.
Any other nominations for Vice Chair? Any other nominations for Vice Chair? Hearing none, we'll open it for Secretary. Now, note that Secretary,
You vote.
what?
You have to vote.
Can we vote later? Because he has a condition, so we can't vote yet.
The condition was not part of
Second-
my motion.
Secretary now does not have to do minutes other than keeping track of motions and taking attendance. So it's a lot easier than it used to be. And it's sitting up here and helping keep on things on track and answering questions, helping set up we don't meet separately, but when we decide what's on the agenda, the secretary and the vice chair and the chair are asked if the things that are proposed by city staff are what we want to have on the agenda, and the secretary weighs in on that too. So, any nominations for secretary? You can nominate yourself.
Nominate Dennis.
Somebody show an inkling of interest. Roy?
I would claim incompetence in that.
You can't take roll?
I would like to nominate Dennis Anderson.
I'll second it.
Dennis?
I have conflicts, and I hate to fall in line with Mike, but I think it would be, I have to say no, because I have other commitments in the week, and I think I'd be remiss to be taking that responsibility.
It's really just here at the meeting and then answering emails, but you're completely under
you can
no
handle it.
obligation.
You
I'm
don't have
just
to go to any other meetings.
clarifying for you.
Okay, I'll do it.
Yay.
Or I mean, I'll put my
Okay.
name in. May not win.
All right, any other nominations for secretary? Okay. Hearing none, we'll go back to chair, and
Who's not here?
And then,
they don't have the opportunity to decline.
Yeah, right.
Any other nominations for chair?
I'm not going to be here all the time.
I nominate Karen Moy.
I decline.
You decline?
That didn't take long.
I forgot to say thank you, but I decline.
Who's missing?
Okay, I'll move forward. And I'll accept if you'll accept, Mike. Okay. So now we'll have the vote.
Can we reopen it at the next meeting,
No,
just to get you off the hook?
no, I can resign though. I'll do it. Don't worry, I'll get over my phone. Okay, so we need to vote and this, primary members are the voting members. If the primary member's not here, the alternate can vote. Because I'm being voted, you'll have to, that's attendance.
Oh, really?
Do you want to call them out?
I can call it out. I'm going to
So
call
we're
it
gonna
out.
call it out by neighborhood, and then just know if you're the primary,
Okay, so I have the suite of elections are Chair Amy Wilhite, Vice Chair Mike Mitchell, and Secretary Dennis Anderson. I'm going to call it the neighborhood associations, and you can say A, nay, or abstain for that suite. Barkley Hills. Oh, Branch President. Kenema.
primary.
Okay.
So you say yes, no, or abstain.
Yay. Yay.
Caulfield.
Yes.
Gaffney Lane.
Yes.
Hillendale.
Yes.
McLaughlin.
Aye.
Park Place.
Yay.
Rivercrest.
Yay.
South End. Yeah. Tower Vista.
Yes.
And Two Rivers is not here.
Or South.
Okay.
I don't know, that's a good question.
Good, now you can trade me chairs.
So motion carries for the election, and so for the three
nice and warm for
new elected, Members, I will switch out your nameplates. You'll
Dennis, you get
have
to come
revised
sit by me.
nameplates at the next meeting.
Linda can sit by you too.
No.
We'll get you guys up here one way or another. Okay.
You're signing this, Stephen.
Thank you for your confidence. It's just been a really
It left
rough
me
couple
out.
weeks, so I promise I'll get over the funk and we'll be back on track. Presentations. First up, we have Laura Turway. Oh, I guess we have both Laura Turways tonight. First up, we have the alternate mobility targets, and then general planning code changes. So in that order, we will turn the time over to you.
Thank you very much. Thanks for allowing me to come back. It's good to see you guys again. So I have two presentations. I'll do one, then the other. Let me know if you have any questions. Feel free to stop me and ask. I only have a few minutes scheduled for each presentation, so they're going to be really high level. The first one I'm here to talk to you about is alternate mobility targets or alternative mobility targets. Either way works. It's a project that is currently before the Planning Commission, and we've been working on it for a while. Specifically, in 2013, we updated our transportation system plan, and that is a plan that looks at full build out of the city, and then it runs these traffic models that are connected with other traffic models in the region, and we figure out intersections, and we do an analysis to see if the level of congestion is okay or not. And if it's not okay, if it's too busy based off projected development, then we have to do projects. So the local jurisdiction is responsible for identifying improvements that will meet mobility targets is the jargon. But we have to make sure that we have projects on board so that intersections can work to the level of service or V over C, which is another technical thing. So you can get through them in a quick enough time. When we did our transportation system plan in 2013, it took us a year or more to go through that. But what we figured out is we have a problem at Beaver Creek in 2013 because it was going to be by 2035, if we had projected that the whole Oregon City would build out with all this metro traffic too, that the intersection would be too busy, busier than our standards allow. And at the time, we had a project in the prior transportation system plan, which was from 2001, so it was like 12 years old. And that was for a grade separated intersection, which is one of those where one way of traffic goes over and the other one goes under. So it's like a bridge. That way they don't have to meet each other at the intersection. You don't have to wait for people to turn and things like that. Well, in 2013, we realized that that is nowhere near $20 million. It is much, much higher. And today it's more than $50 million to do that. So a big project. And the problem was that this is an ODOT facility. So it's owned by ODOT, Highway 213, makes sense. The part of Beaver Creek going towards Oregon City is owned by the city, and the part of Beaver Creek going towards the college is owned by the county. So this is there's lots of owners in this bag. And the unfortunate part is it's still up to the local jurisdiction to find a solution and to find a solution that is feasible. And that's sort of the key linchpin in all this. So we have to identify a solution that we can afford or that we can put on project lists and collect the money to afford. The city, rightfully so in 2013, didn't have time to address that. And so we said, hey, let's do a special project for the 213 corridor. We were also looking at Redland a little bit. And we'll deal with it within 2 years. So we had a legal responsibility to fix the problem within a shorter time frame. It took us kind of more than 2 years, but it also, once we started working on it, it's taken us a while to get to where we are today. And so what we've done is we hired Kittleson Associates to help us walk through this process. This process is not the first time it's been done in Oregon, but this is the first time that this process has been done in the metro region. And so yet again, we find ourselves being pioneers. This thing, for probably something we don't want to be pioneers of, but we're sort of between a rock and a hard spot, because remember, we're legally obligated to come up with a solution, yet that funding component from other jurisdictions is not there. So the feasibility of the solution, you can engineer a solution, but actually make it happen, that's where we're struggling a little bit. So we created a series of committees. There's a technical advisory committee as well as a citizen advisory committee. Who was the representative from CIC? Mike. So they met for 6 times and helped us walk through. We had a variety of people sit on the advisory groups. We worked together to identify solutions for the intersection. Are there other ways that we could find money? What, if we can't get the perfect mobility, what improvements could we think of that will give us better mobility? And the overall end result was an idea that we will do the best we can with the resources we have. We will improve the intersection to give us better mobility. We'll also improve bike and ped, pedestrian connections in the area. And overall, we are much better. I think this intersection is frustrating because a majority of the trips neither start nor stop in Oregon City. It's not actually our facility for the most part. Ours is sort of built out. And so it is, it's been a project of compromise for a lot of people. Here's a list of some of the public outreach that we've done, but it's spun for a long period of time. We also issued these postcards to everybody within the urban growth boundary. So if you're in the city or not, you got these little postcards with this little language, which was required by the lawyers. But we did put a link to the website where we translated that into hopefully a language that was easier to understand. So for the intersection of Beaver Creek Road and 213, what we came up with was a compromise to list projects and to allow slightly more congestion. That slightly more congestion in a technical sense goes from a volume to capacity ratio of 0.99 to a volume to capacity ratio of 1. So it goes up 0.01 for additional volume to capacity. For some frame of reference, the volume and capacities are kind of hard to understand. We know that that intersection is not the busiest intersection in the metro region. There's surely lots we could think of off the top of our heads that are much worse. The 0.1, they'll allow in different parts of the region, a lot of downtowns go higher than that. 1.1 is the thing for certain areas of town as well. And so let's talk about what we came up with. So we came up with the solution. I'll talk about the solution in a second. We brought our solution to, at a few of the advisory meetings, we talked to the Transportation Advisory Committee, we talked to ODOT, we've talked to everyone and anyone who is willing to listen or participate. And so we're glad to talk to you too. For the final recommendations for Beaver Creek in 213, you can see the projects listed, but I'll show you a map. It's essentially to add a turn lane. That turn lane will relieve congestion on the most congested leg of that intersection. So intersections are funny because there's lots of ways to get through them and turn and go straight. So there are a lot of legs or movements within the intersection. They're not all broken. Only some of them are broken. And so we are fixing, if you were to be on Beaver Creek and turn right to go to 213 North, like you're going to the freeway, that would be improved significantly with the proposed project. I think the tricky thing about this project is you need to identify a fix. And once you identify a fix, it goes on the plans. Once it's on the plans, you collect money from developers for the fix. If you don't have a fix, you don't get the money because you don't have a solution in the plans. And so that's been a bit of a challenging thing because it might not be the perfect solution to be at 0.99 because you're at 0.1 for 3 hours of the day as a maximum. But that's sort of the situation that we're finding ourselves in. There's also another intersection I'm going to slightly talk about, which is 213 and Redland Road. We had a project in there, it's a $10 million project. It was associated with the jug handle, and it was in the RTP, but it wasn't in our transportation system plan. So we talked about it quite a bit about alternate mobility targets for that intersection too. Turns out we are not pursuing alternate mobility targets to raise the acceptable level of congestion because it is in the RTP. So we can just secure funding through that way. So it is more achievable because it's on a list that gets funding easier, which is the Regional Transportation Plan, the RTP. Sorry for the jargon. So here's the Redland Road one. Again, it's that $10 million project. There's a lot of red here, but essentially it's talking about adding a lane and shifting all the lanes over. It shifts them towards Park Place 1 because the bridge coming down off Park Place, the height gets a little bit restricted there. So we are also in the process of updating our Regional Transportation Plan, the RTP, and this project, we nominated it for the next RTP and it's in there as well. Okay, so that one, we were thinking we had to raise the acceptable level of congestion, then we found a way out of it. Beaver Creek from 213, different story. This one, we came up with this turn lane. So here is Beaver Creek Road, turning right. I'm going to the freeway now, so you'll see this new merge lane here. It's a little bit more complicated than just the pavement on the stripes. You have to secure additional lands and things like that. But the advisory teams, to their credit, went through a lot of different various complicated movements or projects that we could do to come up with a different solution or a suite of other solutions. And this is where we landed as a city. It's right now, again, before the Planning Commission. So this is the main car improvement, but there's also some bicycle and pedestrian improvements as well. So we talked about coming up with a solution, getting the solution on a list so we can fund this solution and actually make it a reality. And so here's some cost estimates for some of those solutions in our transportation system plan. And that is all I have for the transportation system plan. The overall takeaway is we have this intersection, Beaver Creek and 213. The city is proposing to increase the level of acceptable congestion from 0.99 to 1. And in the trade-off of that is a suite of improvements which include a turn lane. The improvements get put on a list, then we can collect money for them and actually implement them. The rub is that we would love, some people in our advisory groups would love to do the $50+ million project, but unless we want to pay $50 million, and there's this equity kind of component that's happening too, right? Us paying for this whole thing. So that's where we are with that. I encourage anyone and everyone to participate in this process. It goes through the Planning Commission and City Commission. Any questions?
Laura, what was the county and the state and the city were all involved with this? What was the county and state's reaction to the $50 million answer here? Because if it's $50 million to the city, yes, that's huge. But if we were able to divide that up, was there any conversation from the other two partners on this at all? Or?
That's a great question. We have been trying to get ODOT and the county to the table to have some ownership in the solution for years. And for both of them, it's not their highest priority. They have other worse off places in other parts of the county and the region as well. And so neither of them have actually put in a dime, even for this process. We funded this, I don't know what the budget is for us to do this alternate mobility, I think 30 to 40,000, but they wouldn't even fund this process, so let alone a solution. It's just hard when there's so many intersections that don't meet the transportation standards, and what do you do with that?
There's a proposed road on the back side of the industrial lands there on 213. I guess Myers Road kind of goes through and goes back around on the concept plan, is that correct?
Yeah, in the concept plan, there's definitely some roadway networks there, and that is part of the reason why that alleviates congestion. So one way to get congestion out of one intersection is to have lots of ways to get from here to there. And so there are a lot of parallel routes in the concept plans. And just to be super clear, this assumes full build out of the city, including concept plans and all that too. And then we put it in a regional model. So we can see the outside influences as well. But so the city did as much as we could to make sure that there are alternate ways to get around and so that it would alleviate or create options for people.
And one of those is the Beaver Creek Road extension.
Myers Road.
Myers
Yeah.
Road extension. And
Absolutely.
another, was it Loader or something else? It was gonna, so the plan was to take traffic off of Beaver Creek Road, maybe over to 213. So that's gonna be part of the solution.
And if I were to guess, I would say that that helped us get some of these funding sources for other projects that will help as well. But
Thank you.
if anyone else wants to ask ODOT, I've had a few people say that they will try. We will take whatever we can get. But so for this process before Planning Commission, it's a legislative amendment to change our transportation system plan as well as our code language that talks about the congestion at these two places. And it'll go Planning Commission, ideally Planning Commission, City Commission, and then we'll go before the Oregon Transportation Commission. And they would be the ultimate say. One critical component is that in this is that so we'll increase congestion from the 0.99 to 1 for 3 hours per day. So what that leaves open is the window from 9 to 3, which is when trucks move. And so one major component that is important to the Oregon Transportation Commission and ODOT and also us too is making sure that commerce can still happen.
So what are the 3 hours?
It's PM peak time. I'll give them. I can email them to the group.
Okay.
All right. Would you like me to move on to the next one?
Yeah, just.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Just a timing thing. So projects like the Beaver Creek Concept Plan,
Yeah.
are they held up until this plan is in place or until this work is done?
They're held up, and there's no. If you do a zone change that puts more than 20 trips through the intersection, then you are held up until this plan is in place, not until the construction's complete.
Okay.
Because when you come in, then you'll pay your proportional share also. So you'll pay your SDCs. This will get on our list for us to collect money for it through system development charges. And then also you'll pay a proportionate share of your capacity for the intersection. So for example, if I did a zone change and it put 1% of the capacity for the intersection, then I would pay 1% of the project cost too, in addition to the system development charges.
Thanks.
Any other questions on this for Laura? Okay. Just to clarify, we have one public comment on an agenda item, and technically we don't take it public comments on the agenda items themselves. So we'll hear your comment at the next thing on the open public comment. Just letting you know.
The next open public comment.
The next agenda item is public comments after the presentations. Sorry. Okay. Go
All
ahead.
right. So I know I've already gone over some of my time. The other thing I'm here to talk about is some proposed code amendments. Also, before the Planning Commission, or will be before the Planning Commission. I haven't really got there yet, actually. We are doing a Planning Commission work session regarding these on a week from today on January 12th.
February 12th.
February 12th. It's not January anymore? I don't know.
In some place it is. In somebody's universe it is.
So this is, how many pages? 28 pages. So we did red line versions of the code and then a table at the beginning of the code. There is a suite of proposed changes, and I am just going to talk about one of them, though. I'm here to answer any questions, get any feedback. Again, this project, we want input from the public and we want your feedback. So feel free to send us emails or attend any of these meetings and discuss your concerns or support as well. So for this process, we sent out on that same postcard notification to all property owners within the urban growth boundary in the city. And we've had a couple work sessions and been before our development stakeholders group. And we hope to go to Planning Commission later this month. So again, I have this code language. There's bound to be a spelling error or something that you find, so if you do, just let me know. I just wanted to keep it a higher level discussion since I only have 10 minutes here. The only thing I wanted to talk about was the one that we heard the most feedback from the public about. In 2017, there are a few developments that used what we call lot averaging. Lot averaging is when you do a subdivision and you take that subdivision and you can have lots that are less than the zoning designation minimum, provided that they average the minimum zoning designation. So for example, if your zoning designation is R10, you can have lots that are as small as 8,000 square feet, provided the subdivision in a whole averages at least 10,000 square feet. And that was done for a variety of reasons, but namely to allow some flexibility in development because it gets constrained. I'll show you some pictures as to why. But we heard a lot of feedback from the public and the Planning Commission. And so the City Commission directed staff to amend the code language. And so I took a stab at it. And so what I said was, rather than what our code says now, which is lot sizes may be up to 20% less than the zoning designation if the subdivision as a whole averages the zoning minimum, the draft proposal limits the number of lots that can be, sorry, I'm saying this backwards. It limits how small the lot sizes can be, rather than being up to 20% minimum. In our example, the 8,000 square feet, it increases that so they can only be 9,000 square feet. Also, the other piece of that is this limits the total number of lots that can be smaller than the zoning designation. So how many lots can be less than 10,000 square feet? And the proposed language, it's saying not more than 25% of them. We have heard some feedback and it wasn't very good. So I don't know what's the right mix of the right language should be. That's why we're going through these public processes, but we heard sort of too restrictive, not restrictive. Mainly I've heard that it's too restrictive because we're restricting both of them, this percentage and how many lots can it be smaller than 10%. I did want to run you through an example in my mind that explains these much, much better. This is Central Point Crossing, which is a subdivision from 2013. Just a little history on this zoning code is it has been in effect since 2004. At some point though, it used to be 10% reduction. We made it a 20% reduction, but it's been around for a while. We don't really hear much about it, which, so this year we did hear a lot about it, which, you know, it's been around for a long time. So this subdivision is a zoning designation is R8, which is a single family zoning designation with a, we wrote on here average lot size of 8,000 square feet. So here's the subdivision. If you can kind of see it in that light gray, I'll move to a different layout in a bit, but this, we calculate the net developable area. You divide that by 8,000 and you get a maximum development potential of 27 lots. In this case, they did propose 27 lots. We also have a standard that you have to do a minimum number of 80% of the maximum, and so the minimum is 21 lots. In this subdivision layout, they utilize lot averaging, but their average lot size is 8,208. Again, it's only got to be 8,000 because this is zoned R8. Here is the layout in a bit more detail, kind of easier to see the zoning or the lot sizes. So you can see the ones that are smaller are this row and this row. You can kind of see like you utilize it in spaces where you're constrained. The purpose of the lot averaging was for, like, say this block right here. We know that we have street connections coming in and street connections coming in to the area, and it can be difficult to develop some of these smaller parcels within the city. We're not, this is more at the edge, but we have a lot of properties that are not all at the edge. So you're set with a certain amount of block space. And so if these were all 8,000 square feet, you may have lost a lot up there, because number-wise, you can get up to 27 lots, but actually, when you draw out a subdivision, you can't always meet the minimum lot size and lot width and lot depth. The one thing I just want to be very clear on, the lot averages doesn't do, is it doesn't affect setbacks, it doesn't affect lot width, it doesn't affect lot depth. It's just the total size. Here, for the ones smaller than 8,000 square feet, there's 8, so that's 30%. Under the new proposed code, you only allow 25%, which is 6 lots. So if we were to apply this to the new proposed code, they would lose some lots, because you couldn't have that many that smaller than 8,000 square feet. Also, the number of lots more than 10%, because remember, the draft code has it go from, you can have a lot that's 20% smaller than the minimum to be only 10% smaller than the minimum. So in this case, the 10% of the minimum is 7,200 square feet. So these 2 lots can't be. So you would essentially lose a lot or 2 if you were to apply the new code to this development. So this is an example of lot averaging and how it works and how it's applied. You could see the minimum lot sizes on the side here. I mean, most of them are 8 or above that. Here's another example. I think it does a good job explaining how it fits into smaller constrained spots. Again, we have a street stub here, here, here. And we know that we prioritize connectivity with subdivisions, and so the streets ought to continue. And so with this, we end up with these chunks of land constrained between, you know, the property line and the street connection and this street connection. We also have standards that your intersection spacing, it can't be too wacky because it gets dangerous at some point, so it's got to line up. It can't be too misaligned, you know. And so there are a lot of constraints when you work in the world. Under the proposed code, each of these orange areas lost a lot. So it lost a total.
Was this R6 or R8?
This was R6.
Okay.
Yeah, R6. So each of these areas lost a lot. This one's a little bit different because you see that there's a really big lot here and a really big lot there. I think this year, personally, it feels like we've seen a lot of these big lots more, and we never did before, and this discussion started up. So in each of these orange areas, I'll flip back between, this is where we lost a lot between the current code and our proposed code. Oops, sorry. And so that has been some of the effects of lot averaging. There's other code amendments proposed in here. I'm happy to talk about any of them if you'd like, or get any feedback. You can always participate, obviously, as a person or a CIC or as your neighborhood association within this code change process. This is when we write the code. This is the time to participate for anybody. This is the time. I mean, it's all too often we see, like, when subdivisions come in, that's where we get concerned, like about lot averaging, but this is the time. It's harder to imagine because there's no development proposal, but this is the best time to participate, and this is when I hope to see a lot of participation from the citizens. That's all I have.
So one of the groups Mike had alluded to that I sit in to represent the CIC on is the Community Development Stakeholders Group. And this has been a topic of discussion, and one of the architects brought in a plan. It's actually what they're working on right now, if they were able to submit under the current guidelines versus if this change were to go in effect. And it's very similar. I think it went from 27 to 22. I think they lost 5 lots. So for the developer side, that's who we're hearing some of the pushback from. But in my talking to neighborhoods and going to some of the neighborhood meetings, I'm hearing good things, because somebody that lives in an R8 house doesn't want a 6,000, you know. So they have the pleasure of finding the balance But just to let, that's what I'm seeing as your representative. It's the developers who are fighting back, the neighborhoods that I have talked to and asked questions with, like this proposed change. So we had some quite lively
I'm hearing the
discussions.
same, I'm hearing some of the same thing. Comment I got from some people that live in, let me get the neighborhood right, South End, said that the developers come and go, but they're gonna be here.
Yeah.
I said, I will pass that on.
Vern?
I've got a question. Laura went through this, and she's probably the only one in the room that understands all of the twists and turns that she made to get there, so I'm not going to get muddled up in any of that because I'd never come out the back end of it in one piece. But the question I have is, you have a 10%, or I think it's been stated as a 10% of the time or 10% of the subdivisions that exhibit some of these deficiencies, discrepancies, or can't meet the code, or you lose so many lots. But yet, and you came up with a proposal that addresses those, but I think I've heard that the proposal is going to be applied to all new subdivisions from here on out, which seems as though that could make it a bigger total impact to the city if you put this more restrictive, if we want to call it that. If we were to just put the restriction on the lots or subdivisions that have power easements, so to speak, that's probably one of the biggest distinctions I've found is you run into these problems with power lines because they always are running at crisscross angles and not very efficient use of the land. Any consideration to adopting this or coming up with whatever change is recommended to apply it only to the subdivision land that is kind of known to be problematic?
It's a great question. So this is really a very complex topic, very complex. And there are a lot of ways that we can amend the code to address issues such as that. We could write the code differently to exclude the easement areas. That has some trickiness in it, since some easement areas they're not always just power lines. If you wanted to explicitly prohibit power line easements, you certainly could as a code amendment. This will apply to all subdivisions moving forward. I suspect it will result in less lots within the city. There are ramifications of that because less density in the city means at some point it gets bigger. Yes, you could add more language to say that the revisions only apply to properties with power line easements if you want.
And that was not meant to be quite that definitive, but if we could have less overall financial impact to the city on efficient use of land and lots that will never get built if we apply that new change to the 90% where we haven't seen any problems or haven't seen major problems. And we end up getting more housing, more lots, more efficient use of the land.
Yeah.
Amy?
Yeah.
I think, without getting into the specifics, I think there were 2 subdivisions over the last few months that really got a lot of people wound up about this. And I remember in one of them, both of them were over half undersized. One of them, I believe, was over 80%. And to me, what it did was it left our planning commission in a position where if somebody builds a subdivision with 80% of the lots undersized, that's not an R8 subdivision anymore, that's an R6. But the planning commission had nothing to stand on, and Vern and Denise, I'll stick up for both of you here. You didn't have any legal ground to say, no, this is not according to our code. So if we enact something like this, it's still gonna come back to the planning commission when people want a variance, because they get in a situation where, hey, I can't get to that number, I gotta get to 80%, I can't, 80% of the maximum number of lots, I can't get there because of these reasons, planning commission, I need a variance. And that's the way the process is supposed to work. But when you don't have any tools in the code to say no to things that look like an obvious abuse, I think that's what the point of this is. It's not gonna fix everything either way.
Right.
True, you won't fix it either way 100%, but I think we would have, if the 90-10 is a accurate representation of it, we have the problem with 10% of the subdivisions.
No, the 90-10 isn't the 90-10 isn't the number of subdivisions that have had problems.
No. I'm saying 10% of our total subdivisions that we would build in a year's time. 10% of them have this issue. The other 90% don't really have that issue, and it's kind of lacking the differences between the 90% and the 10% is power lines is the major one, and then some other low grounds or this, that. So you would still see the same issues, and I think we'll see the same issues regardless of what we do on some unique properties as they come forward. But we could limit the number of subdivision applications where we have problems, issues.
Well,
to the 10% and let the 90%, if we can do that.
I hear what you're saying, but we had 3 different developers come to our Gaffney Lane before they even talked to the planning department, and they came in with their proposals. And it was like Mike said, I mean, there would be like 1 lot was within the guidelines and everything else was really small. And so once they heard our gasping, before it even went to planning, the plans changed. And so I think that, yeah.
So,
I think they hear you. They hear what you're saying, and they'll take it in.
I don't want to take over, but
We'll find out.
the other problem, Vern, is the easy dirt is gone.
Oh, yeah.
And they're having to build on the weird stuff now that a few years ago, they would have said, hey, this is not buildable. Well, now they're finding a way. So I think more and more subdivision, it might have been 90%, but I think more and more are going to have issues because they're having to deal with the weird dirt now.
I like that weird dirt.
Easy dirt.
Easy dirt.
Just go to infill lots between existing houses in a neighborhood. You got one house that could be divided into 2 or more houses if you tore the old house down and started over. Those are going to be more of a problem because they're smaller to start out with. You don't have a real well-defined, you don't have any extra space, but can you gain 1 more house if you have some laws that just apply to those instead?
And luckily on the CIC, we don't have to decide that. You get to do that at planning, so. I'm gonna move us away from planning here. Thank you.
Definitely done.
Oh, any questions, other questions for Laura?
One thing,
Dennis?
are we to assume we're bringing this before the neighborhoods? The neighborhoods are going to,
we've already sent out notification to the neighborhoods,
Okay.
and you'll get another when we send out the
and
agenda.
you'll want the feedback?
Yeah, we all certainly
It
want
was hidden
feedback.
on that little postcard that Laura alluded to.
We're sending, well, we already emailed out the planning commission agenda for next week, and that also goes to the CIC and neighborhood association chairs, and that does include the same language. And I haven't changed this language since the last time we were planning commission, which was the 22nd.
Right.
I suspect it will be changed slightly, but the next time we get there.
Thank you. Okay, next up, public comments. We have 1, Jim Nacita. So just as a reminder for, I think anyone here that we don't interact with public comment, we just listen to Jim and let him have his 3 minutes and Thank you for coming.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I hope I can request some clarification first that you will respond to. Item 4 on the agenda says public comments for items not on the agenda. My slip was for something that is on the agenda.
Right, and I have something to clarify about the
Okay.
agenda off, but in the past, we have not taken comments on items on the agenda, so that is something we need to clarify on the agenda.
Okay, thanks. So I'm here to chat about item 3B, the planning code changes. And what I want to talk about is an item that's proposed deep in the changes that I think is a reaction to something that I did a few weeks or months ago. There's part of the proposal in this legislative amendment is to remove reconsideration from our quasi-judicial land use procedures. And I want to alert the CIC and the citizens to that and object to it. I think it's not constructive. In a quasi-judicial land use decision, the record, it gets closed at some point. And after the record's closed, the citizen who's made comments can't talk anymore. However, the commission and be the planning commission, the HRB, or the city commission will be able to continue to talk with staff and the city attorney. If a citizen disagrees with a fact or an opinion or some statement that staff or the city attorney has made, because the record's closed, they just can't raise it anymore, and the decision might be made and will be made with, possibly some misinformation or incorrect information. So reconsideration solves that problem, because if something is fundamentally made, decision is made incorrectly, it's at the point of reconsideration that the citizen can say, wait, I wasn't able to make this statement during the open part of the public hearing, and this fact is just wrong, and this is why it's wrong. So this change would preclude citizens from doing that in a regular land use proceeding. And the blurb in the report that you were given says that, well, an appeal will be the reconsideration, and we just won't have reconsideration. There's a problem with that, a really serious problem with that, particularly as relates to planning commission, appeals from the planning commission to the city commission. And that is the fees that they charge for such an appeal. Currently, the city charges $3,488 for a citizen to appeal a planning commission decision to the city commission. Not only that, the current fee structure requires that the citizen pay, quote, actual attorney's fees for an appeal from the planning commission to the citizen, from the planning commission to the city commission. So that could mean, an appeal could cost a citizen $10,000. Most citizens can't afford to do that. And the fee structure is self-evidently a way just to, squash citizen participation. And so reconsideration is a way to, avoid appeals, both to the city commission and to LUBA or a circuit court, because, you can really hash out the issues before you decide to go on to appeal. So by precluding reconsideration, no one gets served. Just no one gets served, except, someone who might be trying to avoid accountability.
Your time
Every
is
city,
about up.
really, every city has, reconsideration in their code. There's really no purpose for this, and it should be opposed. Thank you.
Can you clarify which you're talking about? What part are you referring to when you say the blurb we were given?
If Laura can put up the chart on the,
I don't have it on, oops, sorry. Can I speak? There's the proposed code amendments includes a chart at the beginning, right? I assume you're talking about the explanation for the reconsideration one.
Yeah, that chart.
I didn't have it on that one.
Okay, so we can have Christina send that out to us, because is it part,
It was on your
it
agenda.
is attached? Oh, it just didn't come up tonight.
Just one more comment. There's a way to solve the problem without having to shut down reconsideration also. If the city thinks that someone's trying to game the system or just, delay, well, the obvious thing to do then is the system we have now, reconsideration isn't mandatory. If you or I request reconsideration, the planning commission doesn't have to reconsider a decision. They can say no. And if they think someone's abusing the system, just deny reconsideration. I think what someone might be concerned about is that people are making valid cases for reconsideration that somebody wants to avoid.
Okay, thank you. So we do need to look at, if you didn't look at our packets, I think that we need to look at those a little bit better. Okay. Staff liaison updates on questions from the last meeting. When was that?
Wow, a
What
long
were our
time ago,
questions?
in 2017. Attached to your packet, this was also emailed, if you were CIC members in 2017. This was emailed oftentimes just for the new people. As a staff liaison, over the course of the meeting, I take down notes of questions people have, and then at the end of the meeting, I confirm with the chair what questions I need to kind of go out and do research on. I often provide an email update, maybe a week or two after the meeting, and then in a sense, I repost the email update and any new information I've found on the agenda. So please do, as you see my emails or as part of the agenda, if you have neighborhood association members that are interested in that topic, feel free to keep forwarding that on. And if you want to make sure that your question gets into my monthly list, listen closely at the end of the meeting to make sure that Chair Wilhite has added that on. So that's the process, and that's the goal, is to make sure that staff is accountable to getting back your answers in a timely way. So in December, we had a presentation from ODOT about work being done along the tunnel and the promenade area. So there was a question about ownership versus Union Pacific and the city promenade. So there's a Clackamas County tax map I attached.
Christina, that
yeah.
didn't answer my question. It's a lovely tax map, but I read too many tax maps and it still didn't make sense to me. So is the city responsible for the face of the bluff, or is the
We are
railroad?
responsible where it is the property of the city of Oregon City.
Okay, that's what I kind of thought I was seeing in there, so.
I looked at it, just moved on.
That's my non-legal answer.
Okay. So if that needs tree removal and scaling, it's up to the city. Okay.
If it's on city promenade property.
Okay.
Just to identify again that the City Commission passed a resolution last year that all city boards and commissions, including this one, are required to adjourn no later than 10 in the evening, which hasn't really been a problem with CIC. And then if no later than 11 p.m. with unanimous consent of all the members present. So pretty good taskmasters, not a problem.
No.
And then including CIC, all boards and commissions can now provide action minutes, and this is a change. So, and the City of Oregon City is going to provide those action minutes for the CIC, which is a reduction in the secretary's duties. There was a link to the Central Point speed limit form. Someone asked about the 213 ODOT camera in Beaver Creek, and there's a link to that. John Lewis made a presentation and included Matt Paulson's award for Pavement Manager of the Year, and Amy wanted to make sure everyone got to take a look at that great nomination.
Yeah,
kind
if
of all
you
the
didn't get to see
details.
that, it's
So
a
I
lot bigger
attached,
deal.
I attached that so you can see all the things that Matt does and kind of why he received that award. And I pasted information from Caitlin Jackson, who's the Region 1 Community Affairs Officer, and she made the presentation in December about a little bit more related to the tree removal. So there is a virtual open house for that tree removal and the project along the tunnel. So if you want can click on that open house as well as the project details. And if you have any more questions, you can contact Caitlin Jackson herself or myself, and I can get you in contact with her.
Okay. Moving on to our most favorite topic of all, grievances. So we have received 3 grievances. There's some confusion in regards to processing the grievances, but tonight we had said that we were going to set up some grievance committees, but I would like to propose that we postpone that.
Yeah, actually I have a 4-slide presentation just to give everybody understand what the grievance is, but not
I
a lot
would
of
like to
information.
not even cover that. I would like to
Okay.
just,
Well, then what I do need to do though, Mr. Matheson did submit things to enter in the record, so I made hard copies, so I'm gonna pass out these 3 just to show that we're adding these to the record.
well, we have to vote if we want to move them on anyway, so if we don't.
Do you want a motion to table
Is that what
to
the legal
a
language?
specific time?
Yes, and my thought was, the reason I was thinking that is we have so many new members, and obviously we don't have a lot of members here tonight, so if we were to just draw out of a hat, it's possible that none of the people that were drawn would even be here, so.
Well, I actually have.
And it's a very intimidating first night here I can think that Vernon can attest to that, to be put on a grievance committee, so that was my thought, not trying to postpone the grievance that we don't want to deal with, but it just didn't seem feasible that we'd be able to move forward.
That's fine. I just want to add these in the record so they'll be available at the next meeting. So it's just a procedural motion.
I don't even know what,
Just one
There's-
each.
3.
there's 3 things?
Yeah.
So if we do move to table them, we need to decide when would be appropriate to.
Yeah, so you
Do
can
the
bring it,
grievance
you can
committee?
bring it off the table at a time certain, and it's not just hanging, like a hanging chad.
Wait a minute, I'm gonna make a mess here.
Yeah, I'm
Add
confused.
them one at a time.
Yeah, that would be much easier instead of,
I don't think I did the right thing.
Mass one.
This is 2 pages.
I don't have that.
I love these
This is the
volunteers.
second page of something. Okay, this is page 2.
I only
of
have
something.
page 2.
You only have page 1? There's your page. Here's somebody's
Oh,
page 2.
did it print out? We'll just,
right.
I'll email it
Why
out.
is this?
I have the warning
No,
along
this
with
is
the warning
2
pages.
So these have been entered in the record and I'll email out a digital form.
We need stapling.
That's one, that's two.
This is,
There you go.
Wilhite?
this is
And I
1
don't
and 2.
have
Okay, so then there's another one that's 2 pages.
Chair Wilhite, I'm happy to send this electronically and it's now officially entered in the record.
Okay, thank you. I'll just slide this aside and figure that out in a minute. Okay.
Is there a motion on the floor?
Not yet.
Okay. Can I would like to ask a question before we talk about a
I
motion.
think,
Well, we have to have a motion and then we can discuss
Doesn't have
it.
anything to do with that.
another 2. I think some more copies.
I'll wait
here.
till everybody's ready.
We're missing one.
We're gonna, after the meeting, we'll get the right pages because it's
Yeah.
all confusing.
And it's all in the record and I'll get you the hard copies if anybody wants it before they leave and then I will send an electronic copy.
Does somebody have one of page 2?
Yeah,
of
Denise, we're
this
gonna
one?
do that in a minute. After the meeting, we can gather them up
Okay,
because
and
we've
this
got
is
pages
zigzag.
flowing everywhere.
Okay, perfect, thank you.
Mike, you had a question? There you go.
Yeah, and I think it's a question for Tony, and it may require, he may have the answer, or he may need to speak to the city attorney. I've got a real concern that we're sending a grievance committee off to discuss a grievance when the usual suspects, the griever and the grievee, whatever the right words are in the middle of a lawsuit that has not yet been resolved. Is that a good idea? Is it legal to be doing that? Because the issues are going to get interrelated, I think. So what I'm wondering is the advisability of going forward with this while those 2 gentlemen are still wrapped up in this lawsuit.
Certainly.
And you.
Right. I think that maybe that's something we can add to the list of discussions that I can have with the attorney. before we answer that. I mean, I can certainly understand the concern and appreciate that. And maybe the court system is the best way to handle these in hindsight than what we do with this grievance committee. Because, maybe that's something that I'd really appreciate some thoughts on, maybe on your next agenda, to maybe have a discussion of so I'll come back with two things. Recommendation on what the attorney recommends on hearing this grievance relative to an ongoing lawsuit with the city. That includes staff and the mayor and the individual who brought the grievance. And the second is, it'd be great to maybe have a facilitated discussion about this. I think it was set up to try to address a concern that we were seeing. But I've certainly heard the concerns raised by the CIC members about what are we doing here, and is this the most effective way to handle these things? So, if the CIC is willing to have that discussion, I think it'd be useful. And how do you feel about that? But,
We had it on our goals as one of the things to work on, so that is something that, to talk about grievances and the general, not to these specific ones.
right. So,
Urgently,
more to come.
Yes.
in my opinion.
Urgently.
I think we need to have that discussion urgently.
Agreed. So, as to the 3 grievances that we have now, and with our lack of members,
I'd be happy to move to table. Do you have a date and time certain that you want it to be tabled till the next meeting?
yeah,
Okay, then I would move that we table the discussion on item 7A.
it's
to-
actually 6.
Oh, okay, 6.
We got a little bit out of order.
Sorry, okay. Well, okay, it is 6 because there is a 7. There's no 6.
5A
Okay,
is
so it's 6. Mine just has a 7. To item number 6 until the March CIC meeting, which is when? Would be March the 5th?
Probably the 5th.
The 5th?
Fifth.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's not a leap year. Nope. Next year.
All right, hearing the motion, is there any discussion?
You go automatically to the vote on the motion to table.
Okay. Then we will vote.
Okay. Kanema,
Yes.
Caulfield,
Yes.
Gaffney Lane,
Yes.
Philindale,
Yes.
McLaughlin,
Yes.
Park Place.
He had to leave.
Rivercrest,
Gone. Abstain.
He had to leave.
South End, Tower Vista.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Okay.
It's more fun to forget to do it.
General business, public engagement plan, neighborhood update. Is that something, I'm not clear what that is. Kristen?
Yeah, in the public involvement plan, it talks about barriers to reaching out to neighborhoods as well as outreach methods. So I attached to the agenda the public involvement plan, and I was hoping we could just go around the room and talk a little bit about some of the barriers you've faced over the last year, couple of years, and so maybe some of the new efforts you've been taking to try to recruit new members or outreach to your neighbor association, not necessarily numbers, but get information out to them. So I was hoping to have just a little bit of a conversation around, and I'll leave it to Chair Wilhelp to figure out how we best want to facilitate it. But one of the goals of the work plan is to continue to work on the public involvement plan and kind of be able to share your successes and brainstorm over your, some of those barriers, and together, give good ideas when you find it.
Okay. So let's just start on this end this time. We'll start with Dennis.
The success within Kanema was, or if we can say that it was successful, was the urgency that the neighbors needed to convene, and we saw ways that were easy, barbecues and small gatherings of different neighbors, and to discuss issues related to our ongoing dissension. And I think actually, while it was taxing and actually aggravating for a lot. A lot of people stayed with it. It moved in and out, swells of interest, and I think it actually proved to be most positive. So I guess as a measure for success within a neighborhood, I think continue to reach out, be it with a postcard, contacting them with a mailing list, and getting people to respond in kind on what they would think would be beneficial to their neighborhood, and to seek that out. And that seemed to prove pretty well, don't you think, Linda? You could add, we had some good ideas, we had some funds, we had people involved in causes outside of our neighborhood, and I think that brought people together. And so I think issues that would strengthen neighborhoods and get people more involved, if the neighborhood themselves could find some method or some avenue to join and participate. You know, I don't know what that could be, you know, some kind of, you know, a donation, a charitable thing, or just, you know, just a public thing, just to have a barbecue. And the more you can do that, I think you encourage people to participate, and that's the key. Participation is everything, but you need to have something that would bring them out rather than the other issues that seem to be more, you know, detrimental or, you know, moving people against each other. So I think things that are positive within a neighborhood are people having some concern for their neighborhood and doing something for that neighborhood. And I think that proved to help us out quite a bit. I don't know if that, I mean, that's a long-winded way of saying just engagement and participation would be what I'd say.
Great. One of the concerns that we had was that we were only meeting quarterly, and people thought it was way too long in between meetings. If they had a question, to wait for an answer, and we were trying to get back to them via email and Facebook, and so they decided they wanted to meet more often. So we've changed our meetings, and we are now meeting every other month. So on the odd months of the year, we have our general meetings on the second Thursday, and we moved when that was to, we changed it to the second Thursday. And then we had people step up to be on the steering committee, and we hope to have more, but those meetings are going to now be on the even month. So the month that we don't have a general meeting, we'll have a steering committee meeting. And at this point, we're rotating between the houses of some of the steering committee members, and it has taken a great deal of pressure off of me because the steering committee is helping come up with the topics that we want to have, and they're actually going out and inviting people so that it doesn't all fall onto me. So that's been a great bonus. And we had a page on Facebook, and that wasn't working really well for us, so we switched it over to a group, and that hopefully is, well, we've just done that recently, and hoping that that will take off to be able to get. We were using Nextdoor and Facebook just to, when I would learn things here, or, you know, we get a ton of emails from the city, and so just, I would send those to my secretary and ask her, we forward them on to our mailing list, our email list that we have, that we've compiled from people that come to our meeting and want to be informed, as well as posting them to our neighborhoods, or people in our neighborhood. So that's what we've done. Mike?
Our biggest challenge is attendance, and no surprise, but a lot of that is related to postcards. We seem to miss more than we hit on postcards for different reasons. And one of the things we're going to do is try to get further out with our agenda so that our chair can get the information related to the postcard out sooner. The other issue, and this is kind of a challenge. If you think about our neighborhood association, the kind of the big population chunks, there's one by the high school that's an older, more established neighborhood. And then there's kind of a collection of new subdivisions off of Maple Lane where I live, that there's a lot of houses there now, but almost no attendance at the neighborhood association. So we're trying to figure a way to get people that live in the subdivisions where I live to realize that even though it meets over by the high school, it's not the high school area neighborhood association, it includes us as well. So that's kind of a PR thing we've got to work on.
I think I see that in Gaffney Lane too, so that's a good thing that we can be working on this year, that whole, we've talked about over and over, but how do we get the word out?
I think there's still a lot of people that are confused between neighborhood association and a homeowners association in their neighborhood, in their subdivision.
Yes. Karen?
We basically, well, we have moved our steering committee meeting up. We used to have the steering committee the third Thursday of the month, and then the meeting the next month on the third Thursday. That got in the way of getting a postcard out on time because there wasn't enough time in between the two meetings. So we're now meeting the first Thursday of the month preceding the month that the meeting will be in. That made no sense whatsoever. However,
Unfortunately, I got that.
we met the first Thursday in February for the meeting that will be held the third Thursday in March, which gives us time to get confirmation from speakers. We tend to have better turnout when we have speakers. Also, when there's something, interesting going on. But Rivercrest is old, established, nothing new is going in. We have new residents as ownership turns over, but there's a lot of stability in Rivercrest. You don't see a lot of for sale signs. We do tend to draw an older crowd, although it's been getting better. But we did find when the postcard didn't go out, it pays. It was the lowest attendance that we had. So we use the postcard. Our Facebook group is growing lately. Somebody had a really good idea for something, and we got a lot of new members on our Facebook page. So we do Facebook and the postcard, and we have signs that go out the day of the meeting along Lynn to remind people that the meeting's occurring. So, and I think when we get to the round table, I suspect our March meeting is going to be very well attended.
Denise?
Well, I'm going to just speak in a general term. I think that the biggest impediment that we have as a city to helping increase citizen involvement is, number one, we don't have a full-time dedicated staff person like we used to. And number two, we don't have enough money in the budget. I think that the postcards for us were a stopgap when we were publishing a 4-page newsletter, and people really liked that. But I really, and Brian knows this because I've talked to him about it before, I think we need to really step up the budget over the next biennium and currently now so that there's more money in that, because citizen involvement, while it takes time, I think it's always beneficial no matter what. And it's really the core of our community. I was looking at the plaques that were made for establishing the neighborhood association, and there are several plaques in there. There's no Falls View neighborhood anymore. There are a couple of them there that they don't even exist anymore. And that's in many ways sad, because what we want to try to get across to people is that neighborhood associations are beneficial. It's not only when you think your ox is being gored. That's what people come out, and then you never see them again. Mm-hmm. And that's not really what neighborhood associations, in my view, are for. I mean, they're for getting together, talking about topics of interest, coming up with projects. If you want to do projects, they're for the mutual beneficiaries of the neighborhood associations are the neighbors, and then the city in turn benefits from that. So I think that is, something I really want to reiterate is that, that there be, more expenditure, because postage just went up, and not very much, but it just went up again. I just went to get a roll of 100 stamps, and thank goodness I didn't write my check out for $49, because now it was $50. Not that a dollar is a difference, but still. But that's, people pay attention to the postcard. I hate to say that, everybody's saying, well, let's go to electronic everything. People are getting so many emails, it just gets lost in the blurs. But if they get, a hot pink card or a hot yellow card, at least it's something, they're getting something. So if nothing else, if we still have to go postcards, I'd like to see it a little, maybe a little bit bigger size, so you could get a little more information on there for people. But that's what I really think the crux is. I mean, we're doing a lot of stuff, but it's always gets down to money. It always gets down to the budget.
Linda?
Kenema has really got a large participation for the neighborhood that comes through. One of the things that we have done is spread out responsibility and ownership of the neighborhood. So we have someone who takes care of the fire department, someone takes care of the cemetery, someone's doing this and that. We have all these different people who are taking part of something of the neighborhood. And they really like it. They've got ownership, they've got pride to it. And we have done that as well as having fun, tried to put fun in the neighborhood.
Vern?
Well, it's good to be close to the end of the line here. That everything's been said, and it's all good. It's just attendance is pretty common, except when you've got something extraordinary going on. It's probably communications, and I think I've heard from the prior 6 or 7 people, there may be 6 or 7 different methods of communications. Is it possible we get together and form more of a uniform approach that might work for everybody, so everybody knows what's going on, what the involvement is, and what the responsibilities are? I think Linda just said, not just drop it on the chair or the vice chair to do all of this stuff, because
Did you get that, Christina?
A little bit. Can you say it one more time? Sorry, it was.
everybody's busy, and
He's talking about getting it so that maybe that we are all talking about and how to, like, if we set up a way of this is a great way to do it, we could all maybe use a template or
it's kind of I don't know, this isn't quite a work session here, but it could be a work session where we all get together and kind of talk a little more detail in successes and what we might be willing to accommodate or adjust to get a more uniform approach.
Okay, Roy?
And all the rest is left to Roy.
We saved the best to last.
Roy's gonna fix everything.
Oh, not last, because I had one more thing.
So I've been with the neighborhood association about 2.5 years now, I think. And in the entire time, it's always been very low turnout, except when there's something that's going on, like the park housing development that brought a lot of people in. I know we've tried going to the Facebook thing, and Will's really big on that. But we haven't seen the results that I think that Will thinks we've seen. And tomorrow night we have our steering committee meeting, and I'm going to strongly recommend going back to the flyers. We definitely see the value of saving the money, but we did have some people going, I didn't get the flyer. And so I think there's definitely something to be said for those. So we'll be going back to that. And we've done the picnic thing, and that brings in a few people extra. But as some like Rivercrest said, we don't have a lot going on in our area. I think the biggest thing we had was the Fred Meyer remodel or something like that. And, so I think going back to the cards and just trying to find ways to bring people out, which is, I guess, what we're all trying to do.
I wanted South End's not here to toot their horn, but they have the Adopt-A-Road that they've done. And I don't know if you noticed, but over the holidays, I don't remember what the article was, but they had a picture of, if you'll remember, that Gary made the recycled tree, and he brought it in here, of all the cans and stuff they collected, and they had a picture of that in the paper along with the article. And so I said, go South End. I thought that was, there's a way to unite the neighbors too. It was a different idea.
I guess a tiny bit of an echo with what Denise said. It would be helpful if staff was proactive, letting the neighborhoods know they want to come out and talk about something. It's like I'm on everybody's email list and everything, so I kind of know sometimes who to call to put them on the agenda. But I've never really had a staff person actively say, hey, we're going to be working on such and such. Can I address your neighborhood association? I've had the school do that, but maybe just a reminder that staff be a little more proactive, letting the neighborhood associations know that they have something coming up that they'd like to talk about. Because, we hear a little bit of it here, but like in our case, it's too late for our next agenda. So, and, the nice thing about having a point person at one point was that person could always let you know what was going on with the rest of the staff.
Is that all?
Yeah.
Okay. Great. Speaking of our favorite part, roundtable. Who wants to start? Roy?
Okay, as I mentioned a minute ago, we've got our steering committee meeting tomorrow night, hopefully to address, how to get more people out there. And our next, we do our meetings quarterly, and I think the bi-monthly sounds like a good idea. We'll probably talk about that tomorrow. Whether or not it will help, I don't know, but our next scheduled general meeting will be, I wrote it down here, April 4th, I think. April 3rd at the Living Hope Church would be our next actual scheduled meeting.
Vern?
Since we're joint with Hellendale, and neither one of us have a secretary right now, is that right?
Joyce is still doing it, but maybe not.
Same thing he said.
Yeah.
It's
New
not
year,
there.
new.
Same thing he said.
Not there.
I think she said she would do it, maybe not in an official capacity.
Okay, all right.
Right, Linda?
We have our meeting in February coming up here, so I'll let Dennis talk about it, but ready to go.
Okay, Denise?
Well, our next general meeting is the 1st of March, and we are going to have a presentation by the folks from the Lariat Park project, and I'm happy to say that that's been going along very swimmingly. We have
No pun intended.
yes, no pun intended. For those of you that knew it was the old pool. Yes.
Really good.
Yeah, that just
That was it.
I didn't even plan that. That just came out of my
Swam in there.
Yes. We have, as a neighborhood association, initiated a similar project that we're going to start with Parks, and Karen has consented to be on the committee involving the Buena Vista Clubhouse, which we're working with Christina on that as well.
That's right, I did.
And let's see what other fun thing is going on. We're planning our, for those of you that know, we've adopted 7th Street, and so we're planning for our annual spring cleanup. We're probably going to do it on Earth Day, which I think is April 21st. So that'll be fun, and we usually give a prize for the most unusual thing that somebody finds.
Oh, fun.
That's fun. Last year it was a sleeping bag. The first year we did it, I found the most unusual thing. It was a car bumper. I mean, literally. I mean, it was in the bushes on 7th Street. We don't know how it got there. But anyway, so I got the prize. Things are going mostly well. Yes, very well, mostly well.
Thank you. Let's get a laugh when people adopt streets. Who has to take it home on the holidays?
I usually take it home. Very quiet, very quiet.
All right, so Rivercrest, our next meeting is Thursday, March 15th, 7 p.m. First Presbyterian Church at Lynn and Warner Milne. Be there. We, at our meeting in November, we had a slightly better attendance and concerns over the issues at whatever you want to call it, Promontory, the Bluff, top of Waterboard. It was spilling out into the neighborhood. It's a little quieter with what passes for winter, but we decided to get on top of it. So Phil Lewis has confirmed that he is attending, Jim Band is attending, and we're going to see if we can start doing some proactive planning to get it under control. As Mike nicely pointed out at the PrAC meeting, it's more than one neighborhood it's affecting. McLaughlin, you are graciously invited to come to our neighborhood association meeting because you have the bottom half of Waterboard Park with the same problems we're having at the top half.
What problem are you having at the top again?
Kids, drug deals.
Oh, yes.
And
makeout spot, yes.
fast driving out of the park through neighborhood streets, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So we're going to see if we can get the big boys there to sit down and really do some proactive planning on dealing with some of the issues. And I invited Mike. But anybody else who's in the area or interested in the area, please attend the meeting, because this is going to be step one of hopefully problem solving.
Okay, Mike?
Can you slide that down?
Yeah, I saw you looking.
Yeah.
Maybe I can go faster.
When's my meeting?
Sorry. Our next executive committee meeting is the 26th of this month, and as I mentioned, we're going to try to get out a couple of meetings on our agenda so that we have our postcard info all ready to go. Our next regular meeting is on March 27th, and I did notice that the agenda, the boilerplate with the neighborhood association meetings needs to be fixed. The dates are right, but then it says held the fourth Tuesday of January, April, July, and October, and that's not right
Okay, so,
for Caulfield.
You need to send that to Katie.
Katie.
Oh, it's Katie that does it.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'll
She pulls it on.
Okay, I'll send that to her. That's it.
Okay. Gaffney Lane had a great meeting that I wasn't able to attend, but they have Vector Control come. I don't know if you guys all received emails a while back about that, but they brought samples, and our members were all excited to see these samples of things that are growing, and mosquito larvae in the different stages, and talking about where they grow and how willing they are to come out and help you. So that was very well received. Our steering committee meeting is this Thursday. We'll be finalizing for our meeting March 8th, which I could talk about next time too, but at this point in time, we have planned to hear from the theater at Clackamas Community College, to come and have a present.
Clackamas Repertory Theater.
Repertory Theater, what is upcoming there. And then a representative from Fred Meyer to come talk to us about their remodel and kind of push and be happy to help calm down everyone over that remodel that now no one can find anything.
That's why they do it.
So, yeah. Oh, I read a big article about that. But so that is what is happening in Gaffney Lane. Oh, as far as I did talk about that, I sit in on the Community Development Stakeholders Group, but Steve Van Haverbeek and I also sit in on the alternate housing, public, well, I don't even know what that is. Equitable housing. Oh, Denise is there too. Equitable housing, I knew that wasn't right. And so we had a meeting, and our concern, and I'll share that with you because I'm representing you, is that it was too much information too fast, slammed down throats, and that they were asking for our comments and our feedback and our buy-in on information that there's no way we could absorb. So we've asked for a little leeway there. I noticed that they lengthened one of the meetings, extended it a little longer, so it'll be interesting to see. We kind of took a little poll, and we all said we'd be willing to meet a few more times if need be, because it's just too much information.
It's too complicated.
Yeah, and they're asking for buy-ins on things that, we just didn't have time to talk about. It's just like tonight, Laura was only able to share a little portion of the big picture. And when you have a public involvement and you're asking for input, it's hard to give buy-in to something if we didn't quite understand. So they do a great job of taking that to heart and listening, I think, to some of the things that we said. Some really good points have been brought out. One of the nice things, there's members on there from different neighborhoods and people we've never seen before. So that's kind of fun. It's not just the same faces. We're getting some really good input there. And they didn't talk about in the planning department, if you don't know, is moving, and they're moving up to where Mount Pleasant, that little annex building. So if you've watched the construction going on there, it's kind of fun. So they gave us a little deconstruction. We don't think there's going to be left, but they'll be moving in April. So our meetings will be moved to that building, and
For those people who've been around a while, it's the former office for the Educational Service District.
IMC.
And the Media Center.
And the Media Center.
It's been a lot of things. Dennis.
Kanima's next meeting will be the 15th of February, and we're going to have a few things on the agenda. We have public safety updates from Mike Day, liaison officer for matters of the homeless, and we're going to have neighborhood report on land use and development within our neighborhood and current issues related to that. We will be discussing, Kelly Reed's going to be visiting, and she'll be discussing the McLaughlin-Kanima Trail. And then there's a list of items that are concerned and have been dealt with over many months, these past months, relative to parking and the timeline of implementation and the trail route and the whole project status. So that'll be our our meeting on the 15th.
The May now?
That's it.
Okay, an update? Laura? All right, thank you very much. So thank you for bringing up the Equitable Housing Project. It's a project where we're working with the community to identify housing opportunities. We're looking on the supply side of housing. The feedback was we are taking it to heart, so thank you for the large volume of information and the time it takes to digest it. We are doing a little bit more in writing there too. But regarding that project, what's going to come out pretty soon is a poll. And the poll is, we're hoping to share it with you, and we're hoping that you could share it with everybody that you know as well, to identify housing needs for yourself, and then also determine what kind of housing types and needs you think are appropriate for your neighborhood and your community as well. So we'll be sending that to you in a little bit with some explanations, but it's a fun survey. It only takes 10 minutes or so. You'll love it. The other thing is that there should be candy.
You said there will be candy? Did you say there will be candy?
I said, I want a piece of candy at the end. That's how I'll do a survey.
I have candy in my office. You can always come over to my office and I will give you all the candy that you like. The other thing is that Katie Riggs, we wanted to thank her for helping to support the CIC at some point in the near future. You'll see that transfer to somebody else. And we're still working on who that is, but we'll take in her component rather from the city recorder's office will come to community development. So I'll keep you posted. I'm giving you an early warning.
All right, thank you. With all this discussion about public outreach, I want to let you know that Kristen Brown, our new community communications coordinator, I'd like to invite her to come and introduce herself. I don't know if it can be the March meeting, but hopefully either March or April. And well, I don't think we can, we'll ask to see how she can provide recommendations. So, you know, she's been in other places and knows, you know, she was in Austin before, and it's always good to pick people's brains and see if we can get some good ideas from her as well. And also how we can better coordinate information from the city to the CIC and the Neighborhood Association. So I'm taking kind of that on as to make sure that I'm thinking about you and making sure that your needs are kind of filtered through as we look at our community city's coordination of communication. Let's see. As well as I'm going to be sending an email out to staff to remind them that if they do have a project in a specific neighbor association, please do contact that neighbor association earlier than later for questions, and if they can be available to present. As well as if there's a larger city initiative, sometimes very large ones we go out to neighborhood association by neighbor association, but some of them we can't. So may just remind everybody that maybe you can just send an email out if you're a project manager on a specific project that has citywide impact, and maybe you can respond back to that person, because there may not be everyone wants a presentation, but maybe a couple neighborhoods might. So I'll coordinate that. Even though we don't know who the person is with Katie, the way it works is the day I send the agenda out, I use the meeting information that's on the website is what is on your footer for the agenda. So if you want to make sure that your agenda for the month's meeting is correct, make sure you get your changes in time. And right now it's send that information to Katie Riggs, probably not Monday. You can get it maybe by Thursday or Friday, week before, so she or whoever it is can get that updated, because that's the information I take each month when I provide the updates to the footer. And finally, if you want to look at the screen, there's a new project that will be starting soon. It's the Beaver Creek Concept Plan implementation. And there's a small little FAQ page on the planning page. If you go to government and then departments and planning, you scroll down. And I will send this into my liaison link, but you can click on Beaver Creek Concept Plan implementation. And there's a little frequently asked questions, but Beaver Creek Concept Plan, along with the South End Concept Plan and the Park Place Concept Plan, were 3 areas that were brought into the UGB in the early 2002, a little bit 2004. The other 2 concept plans have been implemented, but the Beaver Creek Concept Plan went through numerous years of legal challenges. That process is done. And so the Beaver Creek concept plan is adopted, but we have not moved forward with implementing zoning, which means the area doesn't have a comprehensive plan designation or a zoning designation or development code updates to actually implement the plan. So we received a grant from, it's called TGM grant, it's from ODOT and the Development of Land Conservation and Development to help hire a consultant to help us move through that process. We'll have a public outreach engagement for not only people who were involved originally, but also new people, because as you know, there's a lot of new people that have moved into the area near and around the high schools. We want to make sure we can bring them into the process. We don't have the scope of work quite finished, but I wanted to let you know that it's starting and kind of keep your ears open. And this page is available. People are asking, like, what's going on with that Beaver Creek thing? What's going on across from the high school? You can send them a link to this page, which provides the beginning information of the project.
How much was the grant for?
100,000.
The grant was 100,000. And this link will be on my liaison email as well. We hope to start the process in the spring, and it's just the timing of getting the scope of work and the consultants hired. So, Tony, that's all I have.
So for those of you who travel on Beaver Creek Road, we are putting in a new sewer line extending down Beaver Creek Road to Loader roughly. So probably another 2.5 months on that project. We've been trying to do a lot of the work at night, avoiding the rush hour as much as possible. So appreciate the patience while we get that infrastructure completed. The commission approved, many of you know that the Parks Maintenance Facility up at Mountain View Cemetery, we haven't been able to utilize the old facility for over 4 years now. They've been working out of trailers at that facility, so the commission approved the final concept and ability to pay for that new facility, so we'll get that moving forward here over the summer, over the rest of the remainder time here and over into the summer, try to get that built as quickly as we can. We talked a little bit about the annex building construction, and why am I drawing a blank on the other one? Park
Tony, how is that
facility,
being paid for?
Annex, what's that, the parks?
Yes.
It's general fund is paying for a vast majority of it, and then some portion of it is being paid for with park system development charges for the oversizing of the facility to meet the needs. I think we went 350,000 from system development charges, and the remainder from the general fund budget for that facility.
Well, the only grousing I heard about it was when I was at a PrAC meeting, and it was alleged, and I don't know the answer to this question, it was alleged that SDCs couldn't be used for that.
Right, now, it's pretty clear that system development charges are the charges that we apply to accommodate future growth, both for facilities. So when you're talking about parks, it's not only new parks land, but also the facilities that serve those. If you don't have a place to put your employees, it's hard to take care of those facilities. So we've got 37 parks and over 300 acres of park property. The building, I believe, was the original, with the original structure dating back to the 1960s is where our parks maintenance facility was located. So as part of the design, we had originally come in with a building that was sufficient to accommodate existing staff. The city commission asked us to go back and look at building it a little bit bigger, and not the full build out, but essentially taking down a larger phase to accommodate future growth needs of that department. So it's pretty clear in Oregon revised statutes that system development charges can be used for facility expansions to accommodate future growth in the community. The other one I want to talk about was the Glen Oak Park. So many of you probably are aware we received just under a $500,000 grant from state parks, being matched with approximately $2 million to finally build the new park that's needed down off Glen Oak Road, just south of the new transportation facility, this high school transportation facility. So Glen Oak, Myers, High School Lane area right there. That concludes my updates tonight.
Thanks. Commissioner Shaw?
I got 10 minutes.
Whoa, get comfy.
So we, every year we have our retreat. And a week ago Saturday, it's an all-day event, and it's almost like breathtaking listening to all of our directors working on everything they have. And I'll tell you, I'm really proud of what's going on in this city. I just wished our directors weren't as overwhelmed as they are with the workload, because, and I keep telling people this, we operate on kind of a skeleton crew in this building, and on the hill there too, so. And so I just want to let you know, and your chair, incoming chair, Amy Willite sat through our retreat with us and stuff too, so she's very well versed on what's going on in this town right now, so. I did get a message today from the Oregon City School Foundation. They're having a retreat, and I said I'd kind of expose the neighborhoods to this. It's next Thursday, February 15th from 4:30 to 7 at the Ainsworth House. And it says it's reinventing, I think it's the school foundation, and whether they're going to talk about the new bond or something like that, I'm not sure. It's not real clear on the flyer and stuff, but if you're interested in what's going on with the foundation or the new bond and stuff, that would be a good time to go to that. This Wednesday, I'd invite you to come to the Urban Renewal Commission meeting. We're going to unveil the proposed 10th and Main building right next to the bike shop across from Dutch Brothers on that empty corner. And so we'll unveil a project there as a kind of a second preliminary. It's the developers are going to show it to us that night. So pretty excited about that because we gave them some pretty good input from the last one. So, last thing I want to talk about too was Denise kind of brought it up, and Karen and stuff, and after what I saw happen with our last general election and what I'm reading about on Chit Chat and Nextdoor and stuff, I'm almost ready to rename this committee the Citizen Education Committee. Because somehow we've got to educate our folks out there better, because that would really help everybody, and all of our directors, the commission, planning commission, everybody, if we had a little better educated folks out there, and somehow we need to kind of work on that. And that's why I'm saying we should rename this, because that's what we do here on this committee, is basically go out and educate our citizens. So, and you're doing a great job, but as you can tell, what happened in the last year or so on social media and everything else, we've got a challenge here to keep our projects going forward here, and new projects too. So that's all I got.
Amy, could I ask Brian a couple of questions?
Yeah.
So Brian, I was, at your urging, participated in the meeting where we gave comments back on the 10th and Main building, and it was my understanding that that was gonna get looped back around. So is the only way it's getting looped back around is, ta-da, at the urban renewal meeting?
This is another preliminary concept, what the architects have come up with after our input from the last one, Denise.
Yeah, that's what I said. My assumption was when I talked to Derek was there was going to be a further closing of the loop.
Correct.
After we gave them all their comments. He said something about, well, maybe I should draw up some really rough concepts of what we heard. And I said, that would be great, because I said, the next time I see it, I don't want to see it like, ta-da, there it is.
I know, yeah.
And then my second question for you is, I don't know if this is something that or it's actually maybe more of a comment then, but something that might be valuable. You talk about educating people. My former employer sponsored through Portland State University, because it was close to us, a similar thing like the police department does. It's a Citizens Academy, but they took the local government issue of our agency, broke it down, and it was like a 10-week session. And so, people came in. I mean, it's been a while, because one of the people that came in after she retired was Vera Katz. We had, the water people come in. So they talked about city government in different parts in Portland. And it was a Citizens Academy. You could sign up for it, and you got to understand. As a matter of fact, we got roped in, of course, because we were the Urban Renewal Agency. So we participated in the 2 classes that were on, what the heck is urban, because that's what it's called. What the heck is urban renewal? What does that mean? But it talked a lot about how the city, the type of city government we had in Portland, the commission form of government, how this worked, how that worked, they call them bureaus, not departments. But it was very beneficial, and they offered this on like an every 2-year time frame. And lots of, it was advertised to all the neighborhood associations, and people came in, and it took a while to coordinate and get set up so that the subject experts could come in and talk to people about what was going on. And so there were, and it wasn't a gripe session or anything like that. It was information. So understand kind of how your city works. And it wasn't, everybody tooting their horn, oh, look at all your, but again, it was information, and they called it a Citizens Academy. And maybe that's something, that we could look at. Maybe we could work with the community college to do something like that and get, because there could be a whole session on, Tony Conkle comes in and talks about, well, what does the city manager do? Because I bet you if I walked out on the street tomorrow and said, do you know what the city manager does? And, somebody might say, well, what's a city manager? Or we have a city manager. I mean, it's just basic stuff that we used to all get, and I don't want to date myself, but we used to have civics. And I know my son had civics in high school, and that wasn't that long ago. So somehow or another, we've lost our connection to these things.
I could see that also transferring over to being on the internet so that you could watch that session.
Sure. Mm-hmm. But I mean,
get your public involvement person
has come, and I just, matter of fact, it reminded me because I ran into the person at my agency to actually put that on.
I don't assign it.
So it's interesting you say that, Denise, because at my parting comment at the retreat was, after listening to what everybody was doing, I said, really, the citizens really need to know this also. What Laura's doing, what John Lewis does, what all these departments are doing. I was going to do on a little smaller scale than that, but maybe 15 or 20 minutes for each department, and what Tony and, because again, it's trying to expose the public to what is all going on, because I think they will have a lot more respect for what's going on in our city and our departments, maybe more than they do now. So, but it's good because I think we're kind of on the same track there, so.
Yeah. Public communication director stuff, right?
Yeah.
All right, following up, Christina, the things that I had were which 3 hours, Laura was going to get to you, which 3 hours are the alternative mobility plan? They said 3 hours, they're trying to go to 1.0, so she's going to get you that to send out to us. You're sending out the email to remind staff we want to hear from them, and giving us the updated information from the school foundation from Commissioner Shaw. Did you have anything else that you had noticed?
Laura mentioned.
Grievance? Discussion? Did you just say that?
This is things that it's tabled to, this is stuff she's going to follow up on and get it back to us before the next meeting.
So probably the grievance will be in a meeting agenda, yeah. Laura Turway just mentioned that there's some planning stats from 2017 that she's been giving to the Planning Commission as well as the City Commission at their retreat. And if that's okay, I can attach that as well. It's a PDF, just shows kind of what are all the applications that happen in planning and what we've been working on.
Okay. Anything else from the neighborhoods that I didn't catch for Christina? All right, with that, we are adjourned.
These are touched.